Hey there. So, my next guest owns a game development studio that he decided to start because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And he walks us through his journey, how he started out not in the gaming space, but then just decided one day he was going to go for it and like started to live his dream. And this was a wonderful interview because he is so focused on making his dream become a reality that he gives some incredible advice. I know you're all going to love this one. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today, I have a very special guest with us. I have Colton Childrey. Hey there, Colton. How's it going?
How's it going, Bradford?
It is a beautiful sunny day in Las Vegas. How about yourself, Colton?
It's actually kind of cloudy out here today. It's surprisingly, we got a big storm coming in.
Where are you
Looking
at?
forward to the rain. Los Angeles.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful. It means rain's 10 our way then.
Yep. Actually, I think this is coming up from San Diego from what I see.
Okay,
It's coming down from that way. So
okay, I don't want to do too much small talk. This show is not about the small talk. It's about the material. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Why don't we begin, Colton, by just telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah. So I'm a level designer here at Legion Gaming Studios, also the founder. And a little about me is I have about 8 or 9 years experience in video games. I started off as a software tester at Activision, moved on up into level design, and I did a little bit of event specialist with Square Enix, worked as a software tester with Microsoft, World of Tanks. Sorry, when it first came out as an intern level designer, but it was already out, so I didn't get my credit on there. And now I pretty much run my own studio working in virtual reality, creating a one-of-a-kind adventure puzzler shooter game for virtual reality and PC.
Beautiful. All right. I can't wait to talk about that. That gives us a lot to cover here. Before we do that, though, I start every interview with a single question. So I'm going to ask you, just like I ask everybody else, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you, Colton?
I'd say about an 8. The wife says I'm weird quite a bit. I like to make stupid jokes when I can.
Is that really the criteria for being weird? Is making jokes?
Oh no, there's a lot more. I'm more of the guy. I'll talk about random things, including video games, anime. Yeah, I find some way to fit something weird or disturbing sometimes in there.
Okay, fantastic. Now, this is the Gamerpreneur podcast, so I do need your gaming cred. I know you have this pedigree from working, but when did you first start playing video games?
Ooh, I started when I was about 5 years old, so 1995, and my first game I ever played was Final Fantasy.
The original Final Fantasy?
Yep, the original Final Fantasy.
Very nice. And I'm assuming you continued playing games since then.
Oh yeah, I've gone from Final Fantasy. Halo was my big one. I got into Halo a lot. Sid Meier's Civilization, Myst, Riven, and I just keep going on and on. Even my Steam library now has about 120 games. So
love it.
I'm already out of hard drive space.
All right. And what do you play today, if anything?
Today, I kind of play a little bit of everything today, from No Man's Sky all the way to Battlefield 5 right now. So I'm a little bit everywhere. I like different genres.
Okay, wonderful. And so you're not too much younger than me. You've had kind of access to a lot of different kinds of games. But if you had to pick one game, it's your all-time favorite, which one would it be?
Myst.
Why?
Aside from the story being confusing a little bit, it's more immersive. It's not so much here's the instructions how to do things. It's like literally you have to click and figure things out on your own, and you have to completely memorize everything you come across in order to pass any levels. So it's definitely interesting.
Okay, that's absolutely true. I was not a huge fan of it for that reason.
Yeah.
The notebooks of like, what was that again?
Yeah. I was always the one that would write down and do all the clues. Even playing Dracula that my mom played when I was a kid, I started playing that, and it was the same thing. Get a notebook, write down this symbol, write down that, and those games always entertained me.
Remember back when games used to have instruction manuals at the back? They'd give you like 12 extra pages just for notes.
Yeah, those are the Final Fantasy days too.
That's right. Okay, let's. That's enough of the gaming history stuff. Let's talk about the preneur stuff. Why don't we begin? You kind of went through it a little bit, but can you go a little bit more in depth about your professional background? How did you end up here today?
So about 8 or 9 years ago, I actually had an ex and my mom. We were all living together, and they got mad at me for not paying bills, even though I was working, paying half the bills. And so I just said, screw it. I quit, called Target at the time, who I was working for, and I just quit over the phone, no 2-week notice, nothing. And a week later, I applied for software tester at Activision on Black Ops 3, and I've been doing it ever since.
Okay.
So
Wonderful. And so how did that lead you to want to start your own studio?
it, it's not so much just that. So I've always been the person that after a while, I kind of get tired of sticking in the same job over and over again with no room for growth. But also working so much at different studios, I've noticed they all get stuck in a rut where it's just the same game reskinned over and over again. Like now we have battle royales, and I miss the days when you had like that immersive single player mode where you actually engaged with the NPCs or other characters. And if one of them died, you actually really felt emotional because they died. Like you were attached to everything in the game. And I miss those games. I mean, they're coming back smaller and smaller now, but in indie studios with like Earhart, Tales of a Broken Wing, and Tacoma and everything else, but those are all coming from indie studios who have maybe a team of 4 or 5, but they push it so far that it's like, why aren't other studios doing this anymore? And now some studios are actually jumping back into that. So it's more of like, this is a time for indie studios to finally rise up and the Activision sit down finally. So that's kind of why I got into it.
Okay. How did you actually decide to start your studio?
COVID-19 hit. Yeah, I was one of the unfortunate ones that when COVID hit, I was working on it part-time with a couple teachers. And since I lost my job and had nothing to do, I went ahead and just said, you know what, I'm going to start doing this. And I started just working full-time 100 hours a week on it now. And if it wasn't for the unemployment coming in, I wouldn't have had the initial 20 grand to drop into the company to actually buy all the equipment and the programs and everything that we use. And so that's basically how I officially decided I'm doing this. Is okay. COVID hit and I had no work anyway, so there was nothing for me to lose anymore.
Okay, wonderful. Now, you said you were working on this game before you kind of jumped in with both feet. Uh-huh. So what was the process that you went through of deciding to make this? Like you didn't just start working one day. Like why this game? Why, like, what was this process like?
So ironically, this game is not so much the end goal. It's more of the beginning to what the end goal is. And growing up, I always felt that for me, the digital world was where I was more comfortable because I could be anything I wanted to be. And I kind of always grew up with that Ready Player One scenario of the Oasis and everything else. And so working through the different companies, finally hitting Square Enix, I got to see where VR actually played a role in someone who had a disability. She was confined to a wheelchair, just putting a VR headset on, and she was all over the room trying to play this game. And the last thing she said when she took it off was, it felt like I could walk again. So for me, that's what made me decide I want to do it this way. And growing up with Myst and Riven and Tacoma and all those adventure games reminding me of how immersive they were. And that's how I want VR to go, because that's the perfect platform. VR is an immersive storytelling experience, not shooters and Beat Saber. Those are kind of all arcadey games. And unfortunately, VR now is actually getting stuck in the first person shooter battle royale games as well, when its prime usage is storytelling. That's the best medium for it to be immersive and engaging. So for us, that's how we based our first game off of. And it's actually going to be the foundation of us building something similar to the Oasis in about 5 or 6 years, as we keep releasing more and more titles to just add on to the first game.
Okay. Are you willing to tell us a little bit about your first game here?
Yeah. So the first game is called Quantum Fall. Hopefully we can have it released, if not by November of next year, which should be more than enough time. I've been working on it for 2 years now. November of next year, hopefully. And it's basically it's a new Earth situation where 100 years prior, there was a giant war-torn Earth, and some scientists discovered quantum entanglement and quantum teleportation, and were able to transport the best of what Earth had to offer at the time to a new dimension, into a new planet similar to Earth. And basically everything is high-tech sci-fi, and the whole planet runs off of one power plant that somehow has been destroyed causing the entire dimension to basically just be ripped apart. And it's your job as a temporal agent to find the clues, go back in time before the event, find all the clues that only you know about, to piece together what happened and stop it before it actually happens again, and completely destroy everything.
Very cool. I love it.
And there is a surprise element, but I can't give that away because that's actually our bread and butter for everything.
Absolutely. I think I know what you're talking about, but we won't spill the beans, right?
Mhm.
Okay. What has it been like building this studio? Obviously, you've had to find other people to come in and work with you.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not necessarily a skill that gets taught, right? At
Oh, no.
Activision Blizzard or Square Enix.
No.
Like, you had to figure this stuff out yourself. How did you go about figuring that out?
Actually, ironically, some of the stuff I learned from Activision and stuff and going from other studios has taught me quite a bit, because even though it's not your job to find employees, you kind of know what you don't want to have in a studio and what you don't want to have in employees by working with other employees. And so for me, it was, who do I know and who I've seen do good work? One of the programmers I want to bring on full time, he was a former programming teacher at my college that I went to a few years ago. And he has a master's degree in AI, but I know I can ask him to program something and he can have it done by the end of the day, no bugs, completely documented and just ready to go. And it's really up to me where to put everything. So for me, it is learn as you go. But as long as you develop connections as you're working through different studios and stuff like that, you kind of know who to talk to when you're looking for somebody.
Okay, wonderful. Now let's talk about you a little bit more. You seem very driven. You seem like you have a lot of passion.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of other people out there looking to start their studios, right? People who maybe already have their studios going, and they're probably not progressing as quickly as you have been. What makes you different? What makes you special or unique? Because I talk to people all the time, and they may be working on the same game for 8 years plus, and like I'm sitting there like, how? So like,
Yeah.
what's different about you?
I'm not afraid to work the long hours. I mean, even today, I've been up 3 straight days just working on the project because I had something break and now I got to figure out what's wrong with it. But I'm not afraid to do 200 hours a week if I have to sleep in the office chair for like 2 hours a day just to get some sleep while I'm still working. And I'm not afraid to be the person who has to go out and hunt down events to go to just to get the name out there and basically just put my blood and sweat into it. I'm not afraid, if I have to sleep in a hotel room for 3 nights because I can't afford rent, I'm okay with doing that, because in the end, it saves me money, but it also allows me to put it back into the company. A lot of great companies started either in a garage or, like Elon Musk sleeping in his own office when he first started Zip2, I think it was, or something like that. And so, they all have to start somewhere, whether it's sleeping on the street, sleeping in a hotel, sleeping in a garage, or even at your parents' house. In my case, I just have to be sleeping in hotels most of the time.
Okay, wonderful. Now, you have to wear many hats as the owner of this company, right?
Yep.
What has been the most surprising aspect, or just put it differently, like what's been the most difficult thing for you to have to learn, have to figure out how to do as an entrepreneur?
Finances. Yeah.
Can you speak to that, please?
It's a little rough, especially with COVID. A lot of the business offices are closed, so I can't get a DBA yet. So I have to manage my finances separate from the companies, and it does get a little harder, especially when you have income coming in from random places, and you're not sure if it's your income, if it's the company's income. So I just been keeping receipts for everything. If I buy it for the office, keep it, but there's no like readily available software that makes it super simple to say, here's my bank account, this charge is office, this charge is personal, take that off, and just keep everything in one slot. I know lately I've been using a program called Wave, I think, from H&R Block, and it works similar to that, but it's not accurate. So there's no real way to do great bookkeeping when you're also having to worry about, okay, do I have to pay this subscription over here, or something comes out and you don't know what it is. So finances can be a little bit hard when you're running everything by yourself.
Okay, so you mentioned you're not sure if the money's coming in through the studio. How's the studio making money?
Right now, I actually, for money wise, it comes out of my pocket. I put everything. I'd rather pay bootstrap everything, because at least then I know I still own full stake. In about a month, I'm going to offer my programmer 25% as well, for see if he'll come on full time for the 25% so that he has a fair share of it because he's going to do a lot of work. But I'd rather have it all come from my pocket because at least then I don't owe anything to anybody and nobody owes me anything. And I get the final say right now. I'm big on not having a public shareholder of the studio.
Okay. And on the learning of the business side of things, what resources are you turning to? Because I mean, like I said, I never got instructed on this stuff. I was a political science major, and when I went to law school, they do not teach you this stuff, right? How do you actually where did you turn to? Like you said, you had mentors, you had teachers. But
so the first place I turned to, because I haven't had experience doing this, but I did have experience because before I got into games, I was a chef, so I had some experience in outsourcing and learning resources. First place I went to was the Los Angeles County Library. You can find every kind of resource you need at the library. Most libraries have a small business section specifically set up to help people with that. I believe here for Los Angeles, I'm not sure about the rest of the country. There is something called, let me see if I can find it here for you. It's like the Small Business Assistance Center or something like that. And they will literally ask you, fill out a form to ask you, what is it you're looking for help on? Investors, financing, banking. And what they'll do is they'll actually reach out to somebody who's local to you, who, if they wanted to actually come to your office and sit down and talk with you, they can. And that's pretty much how I get my mentors and stuff. Right now I have an investor mentor. We've gone over a list of 50 investing companies who are specifically in games and some who might invest in games. And we're actually getting ready to send out like 50 packages to them for consideration after we try the angel investors first.
Okay. Now, Colton, let us get personal or more personal for a second. And we're going to hop in a time machine. We're going to go back in time. All right. How about, you said before you got into the game side, you were a chef. Let's go back in time to back when you were a chef. We're going to go talk to little Colton back then. Okay.
Yep.
And you're going to be able to impart all of your knowledge into little Colton. Everything that you know now, all the ups, all the downs, all the good, all the bad, every struggle that you've had, and every triumph that you've had. If you could give all of this information to him to be able to make it bigger, badder, faster, to be more successful, however you define that. But if there was only one thing he absolutely had to know, what would you make sure you tell him?
If you don't think you can do it, you can. Yeah, that's always been my setback growing up, is I always tell myself I can't do it, and then I end up doing it, and it's usually like a year or two later, and yeah. And then I finally get it done a year or two later and realized I could have done this 2 years ago and it'd already be done.
Okay. And additionally, you see, I actually believe, Colton, we learn the most in our life from our failures, not necessarily our successes. Because when you succeed the first time you try something, it may be luck, right?
Yeah.
But if you fail, you got to take a look at it. You got to figure out what went wrong and iterate until you get it to a place where you can succeed. So I'd like to ask you, what do you consider your biggest failure in life, and what did you learn from it?
That's a good question. I actually can't think of one right now.
Okay. How about any failure you've had that you'd like to discuss that you've learned something from?
Probably blacklisting myself from Activision, despite actually it being good pay. Yeah, that's probably my biggest failure. I kind of wish I hadn't walked away from them so badly.
Okay. And on the flip side of that question, what is something that you're working to improve on yourself today?
Time management. For me, it's time management. With so much going on, as I said, sometimes I work 120 hours a week and I don't get time to sleep or even just hang out with the wife. So that's something we've been working on now. Like every month, every 2 weeks, we go on a trip to San Diego or a trip to somewhere. And I try to make a habit of scheduling family time into stuff now.
Okay, wonderful. And maybe one more fun question before we bring this in for a landing. But what do you think something is that people misunderstand about you the first time they meet you?
That I'm lazy. Yeah.
Why is that?
They always see me playing video games and never ever doing any kind of work or anything. And then once they see what I've actually been working on, they're like, yeah, okay. Yeah, not lazy. So that tends to be one of the biggest problems. That or overqualified know-it-all. That's the other one.
Fantastic. I get that one.
Yep.
All right, Colton, this has been a fantastic interview. Thank you so much. How do people find you? Where are you on social media, your
So,
website, contact, all that, please?
yep. So my website is sorry, my image is reversed, I think, is up there with the giant flaming skull that we call Legion. And you can catch me here on LinkedIn. That's the best place to reach out to me if you have any questions or just want to talk. I'm always available on LinkedIn. And starting tomorrow, we have our YouTube page going up. And I actually be doing live videos of level design starting tomorrow. Will be introductory stuff. So I will tell you more about what it's about. And then going forward, we'll do Unreal level design followed by Unity with a little bit of programming in there. So if anyone's ever interested in tuning into that, I'll be teaching that as well.
Beautiful. All right. Now, as we wrap this up, Colton, do you have any final thoughts you want to share or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
No, I think that's good.
All right. Well, wonderful. In that case, thank you so much. I genuinely appreciate you coming on with us today.
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed it.
All right. And for everybody else, I'm going to remind you all, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.